There are a few scenarios where our core group of board game players just can't make it, or you're out of town, or you just have different friends who aren't as into board games, but you still want to scratch that board game itch. So what games can you play where you have family members or friends who don't play a particular lot of board games? Well, today I'm going to show you some of my favorite introductory board games or some of the best board games for beginners. I'm going to go from small to big. So the first game is That's Pretty Clever, or Ganz schön clever.
I just went over this game in some of my favorite dice games video, but That's Pretty Clever is a competitive form of Yahtzee where the dice you choose not only affects your score, but the pool of choices for the other players. There is still a solo aspect to it where everyone has their own individual scoring sheets and 3 rolls per turn, but there's many different ways to go about collecting points through the different colored sections of the score sheet. You'll only have a select number of rounds though, so the dice that the other players put into the community pool could be a help or a hindrance, making this game that much more competitive than Yahtzee. If you'd like a little more explanation on the gameplay, you can check out my dice video in the card up above. But this is a simple but competitive game to introduce to friends.
The second board game that I want to talk about is Splendor.
Splendor is an open drafting, card collecting board game where each of the players are merchants during the Renaissance, trying to become the most prestigious merchant. You have 3 options of play on your turn: collect chips, buy a card, or reserve a card. You collect chips as currency to purchase cards that will add to your overall score and allow for easier purchasing for more expensive cards. You can either collect 3 different kinds of chips or 2 of the same. You can reserve a card by placing it in your inventory to be purchased later and taking a gold chip, which is a wild, basically. As you collect cards, they'll stay in your tableau to add to your overall currency and allow you to buy the cards worth victory points. If you collect a certain amount of each card, depending on the nobles available at the time, you can collect a noble if you are the first to meet the requirement. First to 15 points wins. This is another simple game that just has a few gameplay mechanics, making it easy to pick up and making it not too long of a game to play.
This is actually the Cities of Splendor expansion box. We had both, but we decided to keep this one because it's actually a little bit more banged up. All of the stuff for both Splendor and the expansions are in one box that is already a little bit beaten up, so we don't have to worry about it getting beaten up later on. The next board game is King of Tokyo.
I talked about King of Tokyo in my Asian-themed board games video, but basically, all players are different types of kaiju trying to be the top monster of Tokyo. You roll 6 monstrous-sized dice to either gain victory points, damage, health, or energy. Depending if you are in Tokyo or outside of the city will determine who you are attacking. You can either be defeated by losing your 10 health points, or become King of Tokyo by earning extra victory points by staying inside the city. You can spend energy on upgrade cards, as well as trying to get 3 of a kind on your dice in order to gain extra victory points as well. The first to 20 victory points, or the last monster standing, wins.
The next board game is 7 Wonders.
7 Wonders is a drafting, tableau building, and set collecting game with gorgeous art and clear-cut graphics to make this game simple to understand. You are trying to build wonders through collecting various brown or gray resources. You'll start with a free resource at the beginning of the game depending on what wonder you've decided to build, along with 3 money. As the hands get passed around, you'll get to choose what other types of cards to go for, whether more resources, military, science, trade, or structures. You'll have 3 eras to draft cards and build your wonders. At the end of each era, you'll compare your military might to your neighbors, and if you have the most, you'll earn victory points, each reward getting larger after each era, or minus a victory point for falling to an opponent. Collecting different science symbols or having multiples of the same type give you points. Trade works to give you free money or benefit off of other neighbors' resources for cheaper, along with extra victory points depending on how you meet the requirements. Civic structures give you extra victory points. If you work on your wonder, as long as you have the matching resources to do so, instead of placing the drafted card onto your tableau, you place it face down in the leftmost column of your wonder. Once all slots are filled, your wonder is built, and you receive those points at the end of the game. If there are any other perks, you receive those immediately when you fill that space. During the 3rd era, a new type of card is introduced. the guild cards. Guilds grant you extra victory points depending on what you have collected during the game. It's a luck of the draw moment and really adds a final punch to the end of the game. The player with the most victory points wins. This game has a lot of variety and strategy, but overall a simple mechanic that I think anyone can pick up after one game. It's a very fun, quick game to play rounds with friends.
My last board game that I'm going to talk about today is Dominion, the base game.
Dominion is a deck engine building card game for 2 to 4 players. Your main goal is to gain the most victory points. You do this through collecting treasure cards and using the many types of action cards to help you gain money or attack other players. There are also reaction cards that can negate certain attacks and additional victory point cards that can add more opportunities to gain victory points to your game. There are 3 different treasure values: copper, silver, and gold. You can buy those along with all of the different action cards. The base game has 26 different types of action cards, each worth different values which have to be bought. At the beginning, each player starts with 7 copper coins and 3 estates. You have a 5-card hand limit unless a card indicates otherwise. Taking turns, you buy more and more action cards and treasure cards, slowly building up your deck until you have a well-working engine ready to get you all of the victory points. The base game of Dominion is a simple enough game that's really quick to understand for a lot of players. Only playing with a base game will also help not overwhelm your new players with the amount of different action cards that there are available. Obviously, if the game is a hit, you can easily introduce the other expansions the next time you get together. But for now, the base game is what I recommend for a great beginner game.
I hope that these board games that I talked about today, or the types of board games that I talked about, give you nerds an idea of what board games you can introduce to your friends and family who don't play a whole lot of board games. It's still a really fun way to spend time together, and I think most people are really actually open to board games if you introduce them to simpler games like these ones. And then maybe, just maybe, you'll have more people in your arsenal to play even better and meatier games down the line. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.